Good evening, my dear students. Welcome to the live coaching classes conducted by the Board of Studies, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So we have been discussing since the past two sessions the topics relating to offenses and penalties. We also saw the topic related to ethical aspects, and we also worked out a few case studies on the same. Now, what we are going to do in today's session, we are going to check and study the provisions pertaining to the appellate mechanism prevalent in GST. When I say appellate mechanism, that means there should be some sort of authority who gives the much needed relief to the taxpayer who feels that the authority who has passed the order has done a mistake. So definitely the taxpayer needs some sort of relief where he can litigate, where he can file an appeal, or rather file a request. The appeal, the word appeal actually is a request if you look at the basic dictionary term. But again, here it gives a legal terminology wherein the appeal is given to the respective appellate authority, and then subsequently there is an appellate tribunal, which is the second level of the appellate authority, and after that you also have the High Court and the Supreme Court in some cases which requires their intervention. So therefore we already looked at the basic definitions in the last session. I would request all of you who was attending this session for the first time and not the previous session to refer the last 30 minutes of the previous session to understand the basic introduction, but I will still run through it today so that it serves as a way of revision for you. So therefore, both the sides, when I say both the sides here, one is the taxpayer and one is the tax authority. So both the sides always have a way of the relief, getting the relief by way of filing the appeal. So therefore, it is a timely resort for review by higher authority where the aggrieved party requests a formal change to an existing decision. So therefore, please make a note of this. A request for a formal change, requesting a formal change to an existing decision. That means the decision is already passed by one particular authority. Here, the request is being given for a change to that respective existing decision. And therefore, right to appeal is a statutory right. Also places fetters. When I say fetters, it means restrictions. It places restrictions on the exercise of the right. Again, there are time limits which are prescribed, what time within which you can file the respective appeal. There is also a requirement of making a pre-deposit of taxes. When I say pre-deposit of taxes, let us take an example here. Now you are filing the GST returns on a regular basis and you have taken erroneous input tax credit. There are certain blocked credits under 17 subsection 5, like purchase of motor car, personal expenses, goods lost or destroyed. In these cases, the input tax credit is not allowed. So you have gone ahead and claimed the input tax credit on this. Thereafter, this has come to the notice of the respective GST officer. And during the scrutiny of the returns, he issues a notice asking you to pay, to reverse the credit along with interest and penalty. And he sends a notice. So thereby you respond to the notice. According to you, you feel that those credits are very much business credits and can be allowed as an input tax credit. So therefore you file a response saying that as per you, the respective credits are very much eligible and can be claimed. Now, when the respective GST officer does not listen to you and goes ahead and passes the order asking you to pay the respective tax, interest and penalty, he gives you what is known as an adjudication order. So this adjudication order is the document against which you will prefer an appeal with the appellate authorities. So therefore, assuming the adjudicating authority in this particular situation tells that you have to pay a tax of rupees 20 lakhs due to the erroneous claim of input tax credit. Now, the appellate provisions say that you need to make at least a pre-deposit. That means some amount of tax has to be deposited. Only then you can file the appeal. How much is the pre-deposit is given in the respective sections. We shall cover that when we go to the respective sections. Also, the provision for cross empowerment is there. That means what happens? See, whenever you are getting yourself registered under GST, you are either assigned to the central GST or you are assigned to the state GST. The registration certificate gives you the respective state, where the respective fact, whether you are assigned to the state or you are assigned to the center. Now, these appellate authorities, again, here, if you look at the adjudication authority, now if you are assigned to the state jurisdiction, now if he passes an order asking you to pay the tax, that means it is the same as applicable under CGST also. It is not that just because you are assigned to the state GST department, it does not mean that the order has to be passed both by the state GST officers as well as the central GST officers. So cross empowerment provision is there. That means if any particular officer passes the order, that means the same is deemed to be passed by the officer of the central or state department respectively. So I hope this point is also clear. Okay, so that means, again, one more thing is when a proper officer, example, a CGST officer has passes an order, you can either prefer an appeal, review, rectification against the said order only with that respective proper officer. So therefore, if under SGST Act, if he has passed any order, that means you have to file the appeal or review or revision or rectification only against that order. What are the provisions which cover the appellate provisions? 107 to 121 sections and rules 108 to 116 of the GST rules prescribe the provisions pertaining to the appeals and revision. Similarly, state GST laws also prescribe the identical provisions. The provisions under IGST Act is given by virtue of section 20 of the IGST Act. Fine. So that was a brief introduction of the appellate provisions. Good evening, Sailesh. Good evening, Viraj. Good evening, Geeta, and good evening, Namrata. So therefore, I think most of you have attended. The names sound very familiar. I don't know if anyone who have not attended the last, this introduction I had covered in the previous session as well. Just run through the definition. Adjudicating authority means any authority who is appointed to pass an order, but it excludes certain authorities like Central Board of Indirect Tax and Customs, Revisional Authority, Authority for Advance Ruling. What is advance ruling? We shall cover it in our next chapter. It means basically whenever you have any doubt on any particular GST provision, you can apply for clarification with the authority for advance ruling. And he will, in respect of your particular case, issue a ruling and say that in response to your request, this is what is the clarification which is required to be given. So he is also not the adjudicating authority. Appellate authority for advance ruling, National Appellate Authority for advance ruling, all this we will see in the advance ruling chapter. So it does not include these particular bodies. That is what the definition says. Any authority who is authorized to pass the order apart from these particular authorities. As simple as that. Appellate authority definition we have seen. Appellate tribunal also we have seen. Appellate authority is the first level. That means in the first case, when you want to prefer an appeal, you will go to the appellate authority. And then if the appellate authority also does not agree to you and he passes an order, he agrees with the department, he says, yes, he has to pay the respective tax. Against that, the next level of appeal is the appellate tribunal, which means the goods and service tax appellate tribunal, which is there. Okay, that is what is your definition of appellate tribunal and appellate authority. I hope this is clear. Authorized representative, we will see section 116, which talks about who can be the authorized representative when it comes to filing an appeal and arguing the case on behalf of the respective taxpayer. Authorized representative can be a chartered accountant or a cost accountant or a GST practitioner or a multiple other persons which are there in section 116, which we shall see when we go to that respective section. Again, commissioner word also is frequently mentioned. It means the commissioner of central tax and includes the principal commissioner of central tax under section 3, and commissioner of IGST also is covered. Very simple, straightforward definition. Board means the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. Revisional authority means what? An authority appointed or authorized for revision of decision or orders. Now, if you see one thing, in appeals, there are two types. One is the appellate authority and one is the revisional authority. When I say revisional authority, whenever after any order is passed, it has come to the notice that there are certain mistakes apparent from the record. That means if you go through the order only, you can see that there are multiple mistakes. In that particular situation, the revisional authority comes into the picture, and revisional authority can revise or make changes to the orders which have been passed by the adjudicating authority. So revisions are covered under section 108, which we shall see when we go to that particular section. Fine. So section 107 is the first section which speaks about appeals to the appellate authority. So when I say appeals to the appellate authority, it means the first level of appeals. When I say appeals to the appellate authority, this refers to the first level of appeals. Please make a note of it. Whenever section 107 covers the first level of appeals, that is, whenever the first appeal has to be done, you have to do it to the appellate authority. In short, we have mentioned this as double A. So therefore, what are the orders which are appealable to the double A? That means what are the orders which you can appeal to the appellate authority here? Appeal against any decision or order passed by any adjudicating authority under the CGST or SGST or UTGST lies before the AA. That means if the adjudicating authority issues the decision or the order, against that you can file an appeal to the appellate authority, right? Also important point is only the aggrieved person can file the appeal. Also, the appeal must be against a decision or order passed under the Act. So therefore, the person who is aggrieved, who is the aggrieved person here? Aggrieved person is basically the person who is on whom the adjudication order is being levied, which says that yes, we have seen, we have gone through your case, and according to us, you are required to pay this particular amount of taxation. So therefore, he is the aggrieved person. So here the important point is aggrieved person. Who is the aggrieved person? The taxpayer who is supposed to pay the respective tax, interest, and penalty as per the authorities. Now, time limit. Please remember, time limit is very, very important. Just because a person has a facility to, just because a person has a facility to appeal against the order, we cannot just waste time by giving him an unlimited time limit. Why the time limit is important? Because if you are seriously concerned with the order which has been given by the adjudicating authority, then you will immediately file for the appeal. That is why the time limit is very, very important. So therefore, any decision or order of the adjudicating authority, if any person is aggrieved by the same, that is, if any person is affected by the same, he can file an appeal to the appellate authority within 3 months from the date of communication of such order. 3 months from the date of communication. Here, the word communication is important. Communication is important. Okay. See, when the person issues the order and you don't receive that order with you, unnecessarily time limit of 3 months cannot start from then. Okay, he has to pass the order and he has to communicate the order with you. That is why date of communication is important. So therefore, the most important point here when we are looking at time limit for filing the appeal is the date of communication of such order, decision or order. So therefore, if you look at an example, issue of order 23rd September, communication of order 28th September, 3 months you have to calculate for filing the order. 3 months has to be calculated from 28th September and not 23rd September. Please make a note of it, everyone. In the time limit, there are the dates. What are important is 3 dates. The first date is date of issue of the order, date of issue of the adjudicating order. Number 2 is the date of communication of the order. Number 3 is the date of filing the appeal. So date of communication of the order is a fundamental requirement to calculate the period of 3 months within which the appeal has to be preferred. Okay, so this is the most important point you have to remember here. Date of communication of the order, time limit for filing the appeal, date of communication of the order is important. So 3 months is has to be calculated from the date of communication of the order. Condonation of delay. See, always due to multiple reasons, the timeline need not be followed, because sometimes what happens, there is genuinely a delay. For example, if that respective taxpayer has planned an outside business trip for more than 3-4 months, and after that his authorized representative filed the appeal. So since he is not there, obviously the information is not given to the respective authorized representative. So in this particular situation, condonation of delay by another 1 month. So that means if there is a sufficient cause for the delay, then the appellate authority can condone the delay. It can say that, okay, there is a delay. There is a delay due to justifiable reasons. Therefore, I will give you another 1 month time for the purpose of filing of the appeal. Fine, that is there. Form numbers you don't remember, just there for the knowledge purposes. Just understand the procedure, what is happening. You don't need to remember the form number and all. It is very tricky to remember all these form numbers. Okay, so just one point to remember: form number GST APL 01 is the appeal, is the format in which the appeal has to be filed along with the relevant documents. Okay, once you file the appeal, provisional acknowledgement is issued to the appellant immediately. So the moment you file the appeal, you will get something known as a provisional acknowledgement. That means temporary acknowledgement that, okay, we have got this appeal with you. The most important point, when this provisional acknowledgement will be given as a final acknowledgement, is when the decision or order against which you are appealing is uploaded on the common portal. It is uploaded on the GST website. Fine. That is what is the most important point here. So if you just look at the important points here, first is form APL 01 to be filed. This is nothing but the appeal plus the relevant documents. Okay. Department, this is the flow. This is the flow of events. This is the flow of events, what you have to remember. Department will issue a provisional acknowledgement. Okay. Appellant has to upload the order in the common portal. Okay. Self-certified order in the common portal. If not uploaded, self-certified copy of order to be furnished to the appellate authority. Okay, that is what is given here. So therefore, if you see here, once the decision is uploaded, okay, after order is uploaded, final acknowledgement is issued by the department. Okay, so here what it says, whenever you are filing the APL 1 and within 7 days you are filing the respective order against which you are appealing. Now, what is this order? Self-certified copy of the order, nothing but the order which is issued by the adjudication authority. That is your respective GST officer. He issues a final order, says that, see, this according to this order, you have to pay this particular amount of tax. So once I receive this order, I have to, this particular order along with the appeal documents has to be uploaded on the common portal. So, but again, if you don't have this order with you, still you can prefer an appeal. But the important condition is, once you are preferring an appeal, within 7 days, you have to upload the respective order. Okay. So here what happens? Condition is the order needs to be uploaded within 7 days from date of appeal. Okay. 7 days from date of appeal. 7 days from the date of filing the GST appeal. Okay. Then if uploaded within 7 days, then date of appeal is date of filing the APL 01. If uploaded after 7 days, then date of appeal is date of submission of order passed by adjudication authority. I hope this is clear. This point is clear. This is the provision what is given here, what we are discussing. Okay. So APL along with relevant documents has to be there. Then once he is uploaded, final acknowledgement will be given. Date of issue of the provisional acknowledgement is date of provisional. However, if he is not uploading the order on the common portal, within 7 days he has to submit. Then, so this is the flow of events here I have given in brief for you to understand. So then what happens? The provisional final acknowledgement will be issued by the authority in GST APL 02. Date of issue of provisional acknowledgement. So in this flow chart I told date of submission of APL, which is one and the same. It is one and the same. So therefore, anyway, still try to avoid the confusion. Date of provisional acknowledgement. Date of provisional acknowledgement. I hope this is clear. So here what is happening? In this particular situation, final acknowledgement will be given. The date of issue of the provisional acknowledgement will be the date of filing the appeal. But if it is not submitted within 7 days, the date of submission of that order shall be considered as the date of filing the appeal. Right? Again, the appeal shall be treated as filed only when the final acknowledgement is issued. Very, very important point. With the provisional acknowledgement is just a temporary acknowledgement of the appeal documents what you have filed. The most important point what you have to remember is the appeal will be treated as filed only when the final acknowledgement is issued. This is the most important point. Okay, so here a small example. Appeal is filed, provisional acknowledgement issued on 10th September. The taxpayer submits the certified copy sought to be appealed on 15th September. Within 7 days, he is submitting. Therefore, the date of filing appeal is 10th September. Second example, appeal is filed, provisional acknowledgement on 10th September. He submits the certified copy only on 25th September. That means date of filing, since it is beyond 7 days, is 25th September. I hope you got the clarity till here. Any queries till now? Please keep posting. Mode of communication, online, email. See, both will be done. Both will be done. Sometimes what happens is, usually it is uploaded on the portal and it is also given over email. But in GST registration done for their respective client, they give their own mobile number and email ID. Why they do this? They want to make sure that that respective client does not leave that consultant and go anywhere, because all the OTPs come to him only. But that is totally a wrong practice. I'm totally against that. Clients have to be educated. Clients have to be educated. You should clearly tell them, we want your email ID and mobile number only for the purpose of updation in the GST records. Okay, but not many consultants don't do that. Sometimes the businessman also says, no, I get very scared in getting OTPs and all. There are a lot of issues. Then in that case, we have to educate them to take a new SIM card and a new email ID, which we have to create for them. So therefore, online email mode of communication is that, but sometimes if it is clearly proved that the email is not delivered to the respective recipient, they will also courier the respective communication. In that case, the date of communication of the order, if the courier is happening, that date only has to be taken into consideration, because sometimes the GST portal may not be accessible to the respective taxpayer due to multiple reasons. I hope that is clear to all of you. Next important point, mandatory pre-deposit. As I told you earlier also, a specified amount of pre-deposit has to be made by the appellant. Only once he makes that respective payment of tax, we can file the respective appeal. Fine. So that is the first type of appeal, which talks about the appeal which is to be made by the aggrieved taxpayer against the order passed by the adjudication authority. Now we come to the second type of appeal, which is also known as an application. Okay, here this is also known as departmental appeal. Also known as departmental appeal. Okay, in the common terms where everyone discussed, it is also known as departmental appeal. Sometimes what happens? See, who is the adjudication authority? Adjudication authority may be the superintendent. He may be the respective additional commissioner or deputy commissioner or joint commissioner. Sometimes what happens? He may pass the order saying that he has verified everything and he feels that there is no GST which is required to be paid. But his boss, that is the respective commissioner, Once he reviews the order which the junior of commissioner has passed, he may feel that what has been passed is incorrect. And he himself may not agree. That is what I mean by saying the department itself will not agree with the decision which is passed by the adjudication authority. So in that particular situation, the department also can file an appeal. It is also known as the review application before the appellate authority. So how it will be done? He can either do it on his own motion or on request which is received from the respective commission. Therefore, the commissioner may on his own motion, that is on his own, or upon request from the SGST commissioner. SGST commissioner also may request him. You have passed this order, your office. The CGST person has passed the order. That means SGST person cannot interfere in that. But the SGST person may request that respective commissioner to go through what order has been passed and accordingly examine what has happened. Okay. And he may ask him to examine the order and satisfy himself about the legality of such order. So then what happens in that particular situation? If he feels that yes, there is a mistake which is committed in the order, the commissioner will direct the subordinate officer to apply to the appellate authority within 6 months from the date of communication of the decision or order for determination of the points out of the decision or order as may be specified. So the main difference between the appeal by the aggrieved taxpayer and the appeal by the respective adjudication authority, department appeal, is that the timeline is 6 months in this particular situation. So 6 months is given. Again, date of communication of order is the date which is relevant here. 6 months is given for the purpose of referring to the appellate authority or filing a review application to the appellate authority on seeing whether the order which is passed by the adjudication authority is correct or not. So therefore, here if you see 6 months time limit is given. 6 months time limit is given. So therefore, for departmental appeals, timeline given is 6 months and condonation up to 1 month can be given. So example here, adjudication authority passed the order on 23rd January, communicated the same day to the commissioner. He direct to file a review application till 23rd July. 6 months time limit is there. However, application could be filed on 3rd August. Condonation is very much possible up to a delay of 1 month if, however, he is satisfied that there is a sufficient cause for such delay. Right? APL 3 is the respective form for the purpose of applying along with the respective documents as may be electronically filed or manually filed as the case may be. Provisional acknowledgement has to be issued to the appellant immediately. Again, here if you see the provisional acknowledgement concept, what we have seen with the appeal, which is the taxpayer appeal, the same concept is covered here. That means once you file the appeal, once the department files an appeal, provisional acknowledgement will be given. After you upload the decision or order on the portal, final acknowledgement will be given in APL 2. The date of issue of the provisional acknowledgement is the date of filing the appeal. Same concept. Within 7 days, he has to give the self-certified decision or order from the date of filing the APL 3. Once he gives it within 7 days and the final acknowledgement is given, then the date of issue of provisional acknowledgement is to be taken as the date of filing of the appeal. In case the self-certified order is not uploaded and is uploaded after 7 days from the date on which the provisional acknowledgement is given, then the actual date of submission of that copy shall be considered as the date of filing of the appeal. Very similar to the previous concept what we discussed. I hope it is clear. Now we look at the duties of the appellate authority. Again, the appellate authority has to be very neutral. He should not side with the department. He has to hear the case in an unbiased manner. He has to follow the principles of natural justice, allowing reasonable adjournments not more than 3. That means just for the purpose of prolonging the case. How it works, once the adjudication authority has given the respective order, against that aggrieved taxpayer is applying within 3 months. And after that, the date of hearing or the appellate authority has asked for multiple clarifications. Now on that date you are not available, so you request for adjournment. That is, you request for some other date. So therefore, reasonable adjournments has to be issued, not more than three. Three adjournments only can be given. You have to, the idea has to finish the case. The idea is to listen to the case and arrive at a conclusion at the earliest. Permitting additional grounds of appeal. Sometimes what happens? What is grounds of appeal? Grounds of appeal are the main reasons which are mentioned in the appeal document, saying that due to this, I am preferring an appeal with your good self, and we want you to help us and make us avoid paying the tax because we are not expected to pay the tax. Now, what is additional grounds of appeal? In the course of arguing, when any new fact comes into the light, and the taxpayer wants to include that also, which is relevant to the points what are being discussed, then the appellate authority will also allow the additional grounds of appeal to be incorporated in that. Okay, then that is the duties of the appellate authority. After that order will be passed, you can make any further inquiry, if any, with regard to the case, and he will pass an order. Now, what can the order do? It can confirm, modify, or annul the order. Confirm means exactly what adjudication authority has passed, it is correct. I have no changes whatsoever. Modify, I have heard the case. I feel that there are some mistakes in the respective order passed by the adjudicating authority. Therefore, I will change certain aspects which is given in the decision or order. Or I will annul the order. Annul means I will make it null and void. It is totally wrong. So therefore, I will invalidate the order. These three can be done by the appellate authority. However, the appellate authority cannot refer the case back to the adjudicating authority that passed the said decision of the order. Appellate authority cannot say that, assuming, I'll tell you an example here. Adjudication authority has passed an order. In that he has made certain mistakes. He considered the eligible credits as block credits and accordingly disallowed the input tax credit. Now, once the appeal is filed with the appellate authority, he has to take these three, either of these three actions. What are the actions he has to take? He can either confirm the order, he can modify the order, or annul the order, that is invalidate the order totally. One thing he cannot do, he cannot send it back to the adjudication authority. He cannot say that, see, what you have done is a mistake, so I request you to change the order. This he cannot do it. He has to pass the order straight away. I hope this is clear. He cannot refer the case back. Next one. He can also increase the rigor of the order appealed against by enhancing the fee or penalty. That means what? Adjudicating authority says that this particular amount of, say, 10 lakhs is supposed to be paid by the taxpayer. The appellate authority has the power to make that 10 lakhs to 15 lakhs by saying that the adjudicating authority has taken a liberal view. He has said that this amount of tax is to be payable, but as per the provisions, the taxpayer requires to pay much more tax. So he can do that also. He can also increase the fine or the penalty with due to confiscation or reduce the refund. He can do those things. But again, whenever he is increasing the rigor of the order, reasonable opportunity of showing cause against the order has to be given to the appellate. That means whenever he is passing an order that has the impact of increasing the rigor or increase the tax interest or penalty which is payable by the taxpayer, then he can do those changes only after giving an opportunity of being heard. Opportunity of being heard, opportunity of showing cause against the prescribed order has to be given. Right? Then also, if the appellate authority feels that the tax has not been paid or it has been short paid or erroneously refunded or ITC is wrongly availed or utilized, again, in this case, no order shall be required unless opportunity of showing cause is given and the order is passed within the time limit specified under section 73 or 74. Now, adjudicating authority is giving his opinion on multiple issues in the order what is given. Now, once the appeal is filed and the appellate authority feels that the tax has not been paid or short paid or etc. or ITC has been wrongly availed or refund has been erroneously claimed, then in that case, if he wants to pass an order asking the appellant to pay that respective tax, he can pass the order only after the appellant is given a notice to show cause, and such order will be passed within the time limit given in 73 or 74. When we discuss 73 or 74, we will see what it is. So therefore, in this particular situation, the order which will have to be passed can be passed. Any order appellate authority wants to pass, which has the effect of paying more tax or tackling the erroneous refund or tackling the wrongly availment of utilized of input tax credit. Then if he wants the appellant to pay any respective amount, he has to give an opportunity of being heard to the respective taxpayer. Also another very, very interesting point. At any time before issue of show cause notice or issue of the order, whichever is earlier in respect of appeal, he can file an application for withdrawal of the said appeal by filing application in APL 13W. That means what? You filed an appeal. Later you got to know that what the department is telling is correct. And you actually don't want to file the appeal now. You decided against filing that. Therefore, a facility for filing an application for withdrawal has to be given. That means, but when this should happen? Before issuance of appellate order or issuance of show cause notice, whichever is earlier. When will the show cause notice come? Once you file an appeal and final acknowledgement is given, the department will go through the appeal documents and issue the show cause notice. Or sometimes without issuing the show cause notice, if the department feels that everything is correct, then and whatever is given by the adjudicating authority, exactly the same thing he's done, he can also pass the order in appeal. So therefore, in this situation, the department is giving an option to the taxpayer that if you realize that what you have done is incorrect and against the provisions of the law, you can file an application for withdrawal of the appeal. When he should file the timeline? Before issuance of show cause notice or issuance of order in appeal, whichever is earlier. Okay, but there is a condition here. Once the final acknowledgement has been issued, whenever the appeal is filed and the final acknowledgement is issued, the withdrawal of the appeal will be as per the approval of the appellate authority, and application for withdrawal shall be decided by the appellate authority within 7 days of filing of such application. So therefore, whenever final acknowledgement is issued, the withdrawal is totally dependent on the approval of the appellate authority, and such application shall be decided within 7 days of filing of such application. So this is the important point. So what do you have to remember here? Dates for filing withdrawal of appeal. Dates for filing the withdrawal of appeal. So what are the two dates which are important here? Before date of issuance of show cause notice or before issuance of order. Date of issue of show cause notice or date of issuance of order in appeal, whichever is earlier. Okay, before the above dates, the application for withdrawal of appeal needs to be filed. Okay, I hope this is clear. These are the dates which is important here. Fine. And also wherever the final acknowledgement is given, the withdrawal is subject to the approval of the appellate authority, and application shall be decided within 7 days of filing of the application. Further, fresh appeal which is filed. Now what is happening? You filed the appeal, later you withdraw the appeal, then later you again wants to file the appeal. Okay. Now, once you again wants to file the appeal, in this particular situation, fresh appeal has to be filed. Fresh appeal has to be filed, and same time limits which were mentioned when we discussed, those same time limits will be applicable. And when I say order in appeal here, it is a speaking order. That is, the commissioner appeals. Even in the course of deciding the case, he will issue a speaking order saying that this is the decision and this is the reason for the decision. That speaking order is nothing but the order in appeal, which determines the time limit for the purpose of withdrawal of that particular appeal. Right? Also, advisory time limit is there. That means this time limit is not mandatory, it is advisory. That is, it gives the time limit which is to be followed by the appellate authority for the purpose of taking a decision. It says that whenever I am filing the appeal, please try to give your decision within 1 year from the date of filing the appeal. And in this particular situation, if there is any stay of demand given by the court or tribunal, the stay is ordered by the court or tribunal for collection of taxes. In calculating this 1 year time, that period shall be very much excluded. That period shall be very much excluded. Fine. So example here, for adjudicating authority passed the order on 23rd January. It was communicated to the taxpayer on the same day. Taxpayer filed the appeal against the order with the appellate authority on 16th February 2023. It is very much within the time limit. 1 year advisory time limit. Again, this is an advisory time limit. It is not a mandatory time limit. Please bear that in mind. Okay. So therefore here advisory time limit is the important point which you have to remember. So advisory time limit of 1 year. So he will have time up to 1 year for the purpose of deciding the appeal. Fine. I hope this is clear. On the next point here. Now what happens? Adjudicating authority passed the order on 23rd January. It was communicated to the taxpayer on the same day. Taxpayer filed the appeal against the order of the adjudicating authority on 16th February 2020. Again, within time only he has done. Again, the appeal proceedings are stayed by the order of a court for the period 1st May 23 and 30th June 23. So these days, that is May 31 days and June 30 days, totally 61 days will be excluded for the purpose of calculation of the 1 year which says that the appellate authority should decide the appeal. So in this particular situation, the 61 days will be removed. Then 17th April 2024 is the date by which the appellate authority can pass the order. After the order is passed, what happens? Communication of the order is very, very important. The appellate authority has to communicate the order passed by to the appellant, to the respondent, and also to the adjudicating authority. Also, the copy of the order to be sent to the jurisdictional commissioner in this behalf. And again, every order which is passed by the appellate authority shall be final and binding on the parties unless the dispute is taken to the higher appellate forum. So whatever order is passed, it is final and binding. Okay. Of course, the exception is when you want to appeal further to the GST Appellate Tribunal, High Court and the Supreme. Fine. Now we look at the appointment of appellate authority. Who is the person who is appointed as the appellate authority? Here, if you see, a person aggrieved should apply within 3 months. Department will apply within 6 months from the date of communication of the order. If the decision against which the appeal is filed is passed by the additional or joint commissioner. This is what is important. Now, appellate authority totally is dependent on who passes the decision or order. Okay, appellate authority appointment totally depends on the authority who passes the decision or order. This is very, very important. You have to bear this in mind. So it totally depends on the authority who passes the decision or order. I hope this is clear. The authority who passes the decision or order is the person on which the appellate authority appointment is depending. So, therefore, if the decision is passed by the additional or the joint commissioner, the appellate authority will be the commissioner of appeals. If it is passed by the deputy or assistant commissioner or superintendent, in that case, appellate authority is any officer not below the rank of joint commissioner appeals. That means, see, deputy commissioner, assistant commissioner, superintendent. These three are slightly lower authorities. If these three pass the adjudication order, then the person who is hearing the appeal and passing the appellate order should be the officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner Appeals. But if the order is passed by the additional or the Joint Commissioner, then the appellate authority straight away the Commissioner Appeals. Fine. So therefore, that is the appointment of appellate authority. So this is basically your 107 section, which speaks about in length the procedure for filing an appeal, who can file an appeal, aggrieved person can file an appeal, or sometimes the department also can file an appeal, which is also known as a review application. You have to remember the time limits which are required. Time limits is given for 3 months for aggrieved taxpayer. Condonation application, further 3 months it can be extended. And in case of departmental appeal, 6 months time limit, 1 month condonation can be extended. Fine. Any queries here? Please feel free to post. That was your appellate authority, the first step, first stage of appeal which was there. Now we come to the revisional authority and who are the powers of the revisional authority. So whenever any orders are passed by the subordinate officers, that is by the junior officers, the GST law says that there is a revisional authority which is there, which can revise the orders what has been passed erroneously by the subordinate officers. Now, this revisional authority, when can he examine the records of any proceeding? Either by himself or upon information what he is getting, or on request from the commissioner. 3 cases here. So what are the 3 cases here? On his own motion, please remember these 3, or upon information received by him. This is the second instance. The third instance is request from the commissioner. These 3 are the important points you have to remember. So when can the revisional authority examine the record of any proceeding? 3 cases. On his own motion, without anyone telling him, he himself can examine, or if any information is received by him, or if any commissioner is requesting him to examine the proceedings. Then what happens? So this he will examine. Now the next step comes to examining the records. Once he examines the records, if he feels that the order which is passed is incorrect, these 3 are the points which you have to remember. If the revisional authority is of the view that the decision or order passed by the officer subordinate to him is number 1, erroneous. It is erroneous in far as prejudicial to the interest of the revenue and is illegal or improper. Because of that order, the interest of the revenue is getting affected. That means the department should have got more tax, but this order is passed in such a way that they are getting less tax, due to which it is prejudicial to the interest. It is against the interest of the revenue. So first case is erroneous. If the revisional authority feels, the first one, if it is erroneous, prejudicial to the interest. Number 2, not taken into account material facts. That means whenever he is issued the order, certain important things he has not considered into his mind when he is passing the order. That is the second point. And the third point is an observation is given by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. In consequence of that, if the order, decision or order which is passed is in consequence of the order passed by the Comptroller or Auditor General of India. So these 3 cases are in that particular situation, he can take further action. So when he will take the action, please remember, look at the flow here. The flow is very, very important. First one, revisional authority on his own, or when getting information or request by the commissioner, he can call for and examine the record of any proceedings. After he looks at the proceedings, if he feels that the decision or order is not correct, or is not taken into account material facts, or is in consequence of observation given by the Comptroller or Auditor General of India. What does this mean? Sometimes the C&AG of India may give any particular observation with regard to any government audit, and it may give a clarification saying that this has that is there, or some important points are there which has come to the notice. It can be anything. Now, If the C&AG gives the respective observation, and based on that observation, the decision or order is passed, then the revisional authority can check whether the observation given by the C&AG has been captured properly or not. So in these three situations, what it can do, the revisional authority, after making further inquiry, it may pass such order as he thinks just and proper, including what all he can do? He can enhance, modify, annul the said decision or order. Did you understand? He can look at all of this. He can make further inquiry if any, and then he can take further action such as enhancing the order, that is increasing the tax liability, or modifying the order, or annulling the total order total. Here decision means what? Is the intimation given by the officer lower in rank. So if the officer is lower in rank than the revisional authority, only then revisional authority can involve. Also, the revisional authority will also give a summary order. Will issue a summary of order clearly indicating the final amount of demand. Again, in this particular situation, this opportunity of being heard will always come where it decides to pass an order which is likely to affect that person adversely. Okay, adverse impact is given to that person because of this person's order. He can serve a notice on such person, give him a reasonable opportunity of being heard. He can give him a reasonable opportunity of being. Revisional orders also can be appealed not to the first appellate authority. It can be appealed to the appellate tribunal, High Court, or the Supreme Court. So therefore, every revision order shall be final and binding. However, subject to, in case it is in further appeal, then it will obviously be till the appellate authority has given the decision. It will be pending. Otherwise, it will be final and binding on each part. That is your revisional authority. I hope you understood the flow of the revisional authority in this particular situation. Now, fetters to the powers of revision. Now, here there are certain conditions which says that the revisionary power cannot be exercised. Now, this can be expected as a theory question in the examination. In what cases the revisional authority cannot exercise this power of revision? Okay, again, the power of revision is subject to the condition that non-appealable orders and decisions under section 121 cannot be revised. Under 121 section, okay, non-appealable orders and decisions. Some orders and decisions, it cannot be appealed against. We look at that particular section, what is given, that in certain cases, you cannot prefer an appeal. Okay, so obviously, those orders also cannot be revised. Subject to the condition, it cannot be revised. Now, when does the revisional authority not exercise the power of revision? Number one, if the order sought to be revised has been subject to an appeal before the appellate authority or tribunal or High Court or Supreme Court. That means what? Example I'll give you here. Very interesting point. Let me give you an example here. Here, adjudication order has an issue which is subject to appeal, then the order cannot be revised. Adjudication order has an issue that is subject to an appeal before the respective appellate authorities like appellate authority, tribunal or High Court, then you cannot revise it. But however, there is a condition. What is the condition? Next page. In this particular point, please remember this refers to this particular point. In the bracket, I will write pending issues with appellate authorities. Okay, pending issues with the appellate authorities, such order cannot be revised. But there is a condition which is given here. If you look at this page here, pending issues with the appellate authorities. That means what? Here, he can still pass the order which has not been raised and decided in the appeal before the expiry of 1 year from the date of order in such appeal, or before the expiry of period of 3 years from the date of initial order, whichever is later. What does this mean? So first restriction here is, when any order you want to revise, if that order is subject to the appeal, please bear in mind, very, very simple, very, very interesting concept. You have to, please listen to me carefully. I will give you with an example. Adjudication order is there. Revisional authority wants to change that order. But before that revisional authority wants to change the order, on that adjudication order, the taxpayer has gone on appeal with the respective appellate authority or with the tribunal or anything. Such orders, the revisional authority cannot revise. However, in this particular situation, now appeal will have multiple points. Any appeal will have multiple points. If the order which has been gone on appeal, the revisional authority cannot touch that. That's very, very clear. But if any point which has not been raised and decided, it is in appeal, that point has not been raised and decided by the tribunal, he can still pass an order. But however, there is a time limit which is there before the expiry of 1 year from the date of order in such appeal, or before expiry of 3 years from the date of initial order, whichever is later. I'll give you a example based on this so that you understand very clearly. Revisional authority deciding matter subject to appeal. Okay. Now let us hear what is happening. Adjudication authority. Adjudication authority passes an aggrieved taxpayer has preferred an against the order. Order has, appeal has issues 1 to 8. Example 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 issues. Okay. Revisional authority has found issue number 9 and wants to change the adjudication order. Do you understand? First, the adjudication authority passes the order. Then aggrieved taxpayer has preferred an appeal against the order. Appeal has issues 1 to 8. The revisional authority has found issue number 9 and wants to change the adjudication order. Time limit is 1 year. This is the time limit here which is there. 1 year from the date of order in such appeal. 1 year from date of order issued by appellate authority. Appellate authority, or 3 years from date of initial order. Okay, so he can make the change within this particular time limit on some other issue which has not been decided in the appeal. I hope this point is clear. So this, what we have discussed, is only this particular point. This particular point. So example in next 2 slides. Okay, please refer to the example for you to get the clarity. This is the first case where he cannot exercise the power of revision. Second case, the period of 6 months from the date of communication of the order has not yet expired, or more than 3 years have expired after passing of the decision or order sought to be revised. That means what? Adjudication order has been communicated. 6 months period should not have been expired. Why? Because the department always has the time, and even the aggrieved taxpayer always has the time to prefer an appeal. So please wait till 6 months has not been expired from the date of communication of the order, or more than 3 years have expired. That means order is passed, but 3 years are over. Till 3 years only the revisional authority has the power to change the order. Fine. So therefore, in that case also, you cannot exercise the power of revision. Then, in earlier stage itself, you have taken this order for revision. In earlier stage, you have taken this order for revision, or whatever order you want to revise is itself a revisional order. That means revisional order revision cannot be done only once. It cannot be done more than once. Okay. Example. So the example here, taxpayer is served with an adjudication order on 25th May 2023. Revision can happen when? Between 26th September to November 2020. That is expiry of 6 months. And before the expiry of 3 years from the date of communication of the order. 25th May 2026. These are the time limits within which the revision can be made. Okay. I hope this is clear. Now we come to another example. APC Private Limited manufactures product P and Q. Company avails benefit of exemption notification in product P and pays tax on product Q at the rate of 12%. Show cause notice was issued to the company alleging that product P was not eligible for exemption and product Q was liable to tax at 18%. So that means here what is happening, he is telling P is exempt from tax and Q is taxable at 12%. Show cause notice is telling that P is chargeable to tax and Q tax rate is 18%. Okay. Adjudication authority concluded that the rate of tax for product Q was correct, but exemption is availed wrong. Therefore, order passing demand was passed by adjudication authority on 15th January 2020. Here what has happened? Company filed an appeal against the order on 16th February. Appellate authority passes order in favor of the company on 31st October 2023. 31st October 2023. Again, here if you see in this example, adjudication authority is telling that product Q rate was correct. Therefore, whatever appeal is going to the appellate authority, that was only on product P exemption wrong availment. Therefore, here the revisional authority has the power to revise the order with respect to product Q. If the revisional authority feels that product Q is actually 18% and not 12%, he can pass the revised order. By when he can pass the revised order in respect of product Q, which is a totally unrelated issue. As I told you in the previous example, issue number 9. Here, it is a totally unrelated issue. On this, he has not gone on appeal. There is a time limit, however, which is there. 1 year from the date of the order passed by the appellate authority. When did the appellate authority pass the order? 31st October 2023. So 1 year from the date of order passed by appellate authority. So 31st October 2024, or 3 years from the date of the adjudication order. When was adjudication order passed? On 15th January 2023. So 15th January 2026 or 31st January 2024, whichever is later. So therefore, the revised order in this case with respect to product number Q, which was not a subject of the appeal, can be passed, revised order can be passed by 15th January 2026. Very, very important example. Hope all of you have understood. If you have not understood, I'll again explain the same. Again, 3 years, as I told you, limitation period is given with in this particular situation. That means he clearly says that the revisional authority, if he wants to make any changes, he has to do within 3 years from the date of the initial order. So what are the 3 years in this particular situation? When you're calculating the limitation period, you have to exclude certain period in this particular situation. That means what is the period which you have to exclude? Now, whichever this order is to be revised, it involves an issue on which the tribunal or the High Court has given its decision in some other proceeding and appeal to the High Court or Supreme Court is pending. The period spent between the date of decision of the tribunal and date of decision of the High Court, or the date of decision of the High Court and date of Supreme Court, shall be excluded in computing the limitation period. Now, what does this mean? Looking at the previous example only, if you look at the previous example, that product number Q, whether it is exempt or not, is a part of separate appeal proceedings with the appellate tribunal or the High Court or the Supreme Court. The time which the respective High Court and the time which the respective Supreme Court takes in arriving at a decision with regard to the taxability has to be excluded when you are calculating these 3 years. So therefore, limitation period of 3 years, these particular two dates dates of decision of appellate and decision of high court, or dates of decision of high court and supreme court. Whatever time limit is there between those two dates has to be excluded when you are computing the period of limitation. Fine. And also, whenever issuance of a revision order is stayed by the order of the court or tribunal, again, sometimes what happens, the revision order, you can apply for a stay. When I say a stay, that means holding for collection of demand. In that particular situation, the period of such stay shall also be excluded while computing the limitation period of 3 years. Who are the officers who are authorized as a revisional authority? Again, here, for decisions which are passed by additional or joint commissioner, the revisional authority is the principal commissioner or the commissioner. Whichever is passed by the deputy or assistant commissioner or superintendent, revisional authority is the additional or joint commissioner. So these are the officers who are authorized to act as a revisional authority. So that was your appellate authority and revisional authority. Any queries till now here? I hope it is not very confusing. I hope all of you understood the time limit and the period of limitation. That is the most important point here. Which example? Yeah, this example, right? See, it is very, very simple here. Now, this particular example is here. We are looking at the provision as to when the revisional authority can exercise the power of revision. Now, what is happening in this particular situation? Product P and product Q are there. Product P company is availing exemption. For product Q, company is paying 12% tax. Show cause notice was issued. This is at the assessment stage. Show cause notice was issued saying that P is not eligible for exemption, but Q is liable to tax at the rate of 18%. Finally, what happened? Adjudicating authority said rate of Q was correct only. That means 12% Q is correct only, but P is not exempt. So therefore, that is wrongly availed. Therefore, demand was passed by the adjudicating authority. This is what has happened. Now, adjudication authority is not telling that product Q should be 18%. He is agreeing with ABC Private Limited for 12%. So therefore, the appeal was being preferred only with respect to the product P in this particular situation, which the adjudicating authority said it is not subject to exemption and gone an appeal only against that. So when I say the revisional authority cannot revise orders which are in a subject matter of appeal, that means the revisional authority cannot touch the aspects which are on appeal. That means in this particular situation, revisional authority cannot touch and address the fact whether it is exempt or not because it is already subject to the appeal. But the revisional authority, however, can touch upon the product Q where the revisional authority feels adjudicating authority has made a mistake. It is not 12%, it has to be 18%. Then the revisional authority can come into the picture. But there is a time limit which is attached because the case is under appeal. It says revisional authority can enter the picture. It can pass the revisional order, can pass the revised order. However, it has to pass. There is a time limit which is given for that. It is 1 year from the date of order passed by the appellate authority or 3 years from the date of adjudication order, whichever is later. So when was the adjudication order? Here was 15th January 2023. So up to 15th January 2026 or 1 year from the date of the appellate order. Appellate order was passed on 31st October 2023, 31st October 2024 or 15th December 2026, whichever is later, the revisional authority can pass the revised order. I hope it is clear. Okay. Any doubts here? Please let me know. That example is clear. Rahim, I hope you got this example. Okay, slightly tricky clause here. That is why we have given an example based on this. Fine. This it totally refers to this particular point. The order subject to revise this particular point. Now we come to limitation period exclude, who has to be revisional authority, that is done. Now we come to the next concept of appellate tribunal under the GST laws. Appellate tribunal under the GST laws. Please bear in mind, Appellate tribunal is the second level of appellate authority. Appellate tribunal is the second level of appellate authority. So therefore, usually the structure is very similar to income tax. In income tax also, the appellate authority is known as the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Here it is known as GST Appellate Tribunal, right? It is something like a court which primarily decides on all the issues wherever the appellate authority has given a decision. Against that, you can file an appeal with the GST Appellate Tribunal. So therefore here, what does it say? Government will establish the appellate tribunal known as the Goods and Service Tax Appellate Tribunal for hearing appeals against the orders passed by the appellate authority or the revisional authority. So whenever the appellate authority passes any order or revisional authority passes any order, you can file an appeal with the GST Appellate Tribunal. Please bear in mind that practically this tribunal is not yet constituted. It has been more than 6 years since GST has come, okay, but the tribunal is not yet constituted. We are hoping by this December end, the tribunal is constituted and on the bench, because they are supposed to have benches throughout the country, okay. The jurisdictional powers and all exercised by the principal bench and the state bench. The principal bench will sit at New Delhi. It is the main bench which will decide the more complicated GST matters with regard to place of supply and other important IGST related provisions. So principal bench will have a president supervising the entire bench, a judicial member. Judicial member will look at more of the legal aspects. Technical member will look at the technical provisions, etc. And technical member state. So these 1, 2, 3, 4 people will sit in the principal bench. Apart from that, the state has to request. Once the state requests, the government will also constitute each number of state benches, such places as recommended by the council. 2 judicial members will be there to look about the legal precedents, judgments, case laws, etc. 1 technical member state and 1 technical member center. This is the constitution of the tribunal. The principal bench and the state bench will hear the appeals against orders passed by the appellate authority or the revisional authority. Whichever orders they pass, these 2 benches will hear it. However, this is a most very important point. Question also can be asked on this, where any of the issues relates to place of supply, it shall be heard only by the principal bench. Okay, why this is happening? Because place of supply is basically an IGST concept where interstate supply is involved. The principal bench has to be taken into consideration. They will only hear the matter. Sometimes there will also be a single member bench which is constituted with respect to small cases. So therefore, whenever the tax or ITC or any amount of fine, penalty, etc. does not exceed rupees 50 lakhs and does not involve any question of law. See, in any appeal for that matter, there are 2 aspects, 2 questions which are addressed. One is known as a question of fact and one is known as a question of law. When you say question of fact, what exactly has happened in the case? That means the supplier has issued the invoices, he has not filed the GSTR 3B. That is question of fact. But wherever there is an interpretation of law which is involved, that is known as a question of law. That is what exactly the section says, whether it is interstate supply or whether it is intrastate supply. This is something which is known as a question of law. It is not a question of fact. So the single bench can preside over the cases, single member bench, that is only 1 person will be there, only when the amount does not exceed rupees 50 lakhs and does not involve any question of law. That means 2 conditions have to be fulfilled. The amount of fine, penalty, etc. or ITC input tax credit involved does not exceed 50 lakhs and it also does not involve any question of law. This, with approval of the president, etc., it has to be heard by a single member. In all the other cases, it will be heard by a judicial member and 1 technical member, that is a double member bench will be taken into consideration. Fine. So therefore, single member bench, when it will come, in these conditions have to be fulfilled. 1, amount of tax or ITC involved on the amount of fine, fee, penalty does not exceed 50 lakhs. Matter does not include the question of law. President of the principal bench tribunal have to give the prior approval for the single member bench. Any other conditions as may be listed. Sometimes, since multiple members are constituted, now all these practically it has not yet been happening. It is there in the provision. It still has to be implemented. So, whenever there are two judicial members and two technical members, there is bound to be a difference of opinion on any point or multiple points. In that particular situation, when the members are not able to, when the entire all the bench members are not able to arrive at a consensus, they will refer the point to the president of the tribunal. President will refer such case for hearing. Where to whom he will refer? Whenever the appeal is originally heard by the state bench, and they don't have any consensus, they are not able to arrive at a decision. The president will refer to another member of a state bench within the state. That is, if there are multiple benches within the same state, he will refer to the other bench. Or if there is no other state bench available in that state, he will refer to a state bench in some other state altogether. Sometimes, if the appeal was originally heard by the members of the principal bench, they are not able to arrive at a conclusion. The president will refer it to another member from the principal bench, or where any other member is not available, he will refer to the member of the state bench. Such points will be as per the majority opinion, including the members. Whoever has issued, whoever has first heard the case, including them, whichever is the majority, according to that, the case will be decided. Also, transfer or member or cases, this is there in income tax also. The president will time to time keep transferring the business. One case to the other case he will transfer. Then senior most judicial member will act as the vice president of the state benches. And government also may transfer members from one bench to the other. These are all procedural issues with respect to bench, how it is constituted. However, practically this is not yet happening. It is supposed to happen in this particular month. Now we come to the 111 section, which speaks about the procedure before the appellate tribunal. Again, the court, though the appellate tribunal is a court, the code of civil procedure will not be applicable. Here, principle of natural justice will be applicable, and the appellate tribunal has the power to regulate its own procedure. Same powers as there in civil court it will have with respect to the following thing: summoning and enforcing the attendance. The tribunal can summon and force anyone to attend in person. He may also require the discovery and production of documents, receiving evidence on affidavits, subject to the provisions of 123 of Indian. Any public record or document he can ask from any department, and also for examination of witnesses or documents he can issue the commissions. Dismissing a representation for default or deciding it ex parte. If any representation is made to the bench, if there is any default which is made, he can dismiss it. That means if the appeal is not filed in a proper manner, he can dismiss it, or decide it ex parte means without consideration to the facts of the case. Just because there has been mistake in the appeal documents and the appeal way in which it has been done to the tribunal, he can decide it and pass on the order. He can also set aside any order of dismissal or representation for default of any other prospect. So similarly, whatever he has dismissed, whichever appeal he can dismiss, he can set aside the order of dismissal, and again he can hear the case. Any other matter which will be prescribed. Fine. All these are procedural things. Request you to go through it. Again, appellate tribunal is very similar to the High Court or the Supreme Court. Same way it will be done, and whatever order is passed by the appellate tribunal, it will be enforced in the same manner as if it is a decree which is made by the court. The tribunal can send for execution to the court within the local limits. Okay. Again, what are the order which is passed by the tribunal? Once it is passed, it has to send to the registered office of the company the order against a company, and in case an order against any other person, wherever the respective person works, it will send the order to that particular person. And all the proceedings before the tribunal is deemed to be the judicial proceedings for the purpose of the Indian Penal Code, deemed to be nothing but very similar to a civil code. Again, what are the orders which are appealable to the appellate tribunal? The orders which are passed by the appellate authority or the revisional authority may appeal to the appellate tribunal. What is the time limit here? Again, very, very important. Here also date of communication is important. Appeal can be filed within 3 months from the date on which the order sought to be appealed is communicated. So 3 months from the date of communication of the order, the appeal can be preferred. The delay can be condoned up to 3 months beyond the specified period of 3 months if it is satisfied that there was a sufficient cause for the delay. Then the form of filing appeal, APL file, either electronically or otherwise. Again, this has to be notified. Till now, as I told you, it's practically not been implemented. Same provisions are there here also. Provisional acknowledgement will be given. Within 7 days, the certified copy of the order has to be submitted. And then the final acknowledgement will come. Within 7 days, if you are filing the self-certified decision or the order, in that case, the date of provisional acknowledgement issue will be the date of filing the appeal. If it is submitted after 7 days, the date of filing the appeal will be the date of submission of such copy. Appeal shall be treated as filed only once the final acknowledgement is issued. Fine. Sometimes what happens? Very small cases. That is tax or ITC involved, or difference in the tax or ITC involved, or amount of final penalty does not exceed rupees 50,000. The tribunal can refuse to admit an appeal. It says it is too small because the filing fees itself is high. The pre-deposit and the filing fee itself is high. So it can straight away refuse to admit the appeal in case of small penalties and input tax credit, etc. What is memorandum of cross objections? Whenever the appellant files an appeal with the appellate tribunal, the respondent, that is, for example, here the taxpayer is preferring an appeal against the order given by the appellate authority. The appeal is given to is filed with the GST appellate tribunal. Once the appeal is filed, the option that is also given to the respondent, that is nothing but the department in this case. Filing of cross objections, that is, if I file the appeal documents with the GST appellate tribunal, the facility is also given to the respective respondent, which is the department in this particular case, to file the memorandum of cross objections against which the respondent may initially not have chosen to file an appeal. So whenever the appeal is filed, the party against whom the appeal was preferred may, notwithstanding that he may not have appealed, may file within 45 days a memorandum of cross objection. Let me, I'll tell you what example for this. Now the taxpayer is there. The input tax credit as per the GST department was ineligible, but he claimed the input tax credit. He filed he claimed the input tax credit. He went on appeal. Appellate authority said, no, still it is blocked only. So now what I did, I went in appeal with the GST appellate tribunal with regard to the claiming of the input tax credit. This is what I did. Now, there may be certain issues where the department has also appealed and the appellate authority has given the order. In the same order, the appellate authority has given the order in favor of the taxpayer. On its own, the department has not filed the appeal. But the moment the taxpayer files the appeal, the department also has been given a facility to file something known as a memorandum of cross objections. That is, initially I didn't want to appeal on the issues what the appellate authority supported the taxpayer. But now anyways the taxpayer has appealed for the issues where the appellate authority did not support him. So I also might as well give the cross objections for the issues where the appellate authority has supported him in the order. This is your memorandum of cross objections. Right? In that case, within 45 days, he can file memorandum of cross objection, and such memorandum will be disposed by the tribunal similar to the appeal. Again, for this 45 days time limit is given, and again here this 45 days time limit will be calculated from the date of receipt of notice. Whenever the appeal has been filed by the taxpayer here, the GST tribunal will also inform the department. So whenever that communication is given, within 45 days, he can file a memorandum of cross objection. For this also, ponderation provision is given up to 45 days beyond the specified period of 45 days if there is a sufficient cause for delay. I hope you understood what is memorandum of cross objections. If you did not, let me know. I will again explain the same. Fees for filing the appeal. Again, there is appeal fees which is involved here. For every 1 lakh of tax, it is 1,000 rupees. However, the total will not exceed rupees 25,000. This is apart from the tax, etc. It is called appeal filing fees. Okay, appeal filing fees is basically for every 1 lakh of demand, 1,000 rupees will be calculated, and but the outer limit will be 25,000. It cannot exceed rupees 25,000. In case of rectification of errors, sometimes the appellate tribunal may make some simple errors in the order, for which application can be made to the tribunal for rectification of those errors. In that situation, there is no application fee. Mandatory pre-deposit also is there, that we will look at the section in the coming slides. So unless the amount of pre-deposit is made, you cannot file the appeal. Now, same way as the appellant filing, the taxpayer filing the appeal, departmental appeal facility is also given. That is, whenever the appellate authority passes an order and the GST department feels that the appellate authority has favored the taxpayer and is not in acceptance with the order passed by the appellate authority, the commissioner may, on his own motion or on request by other commissioners, he may examine the order and he may direct the subordinate officer to apply within 6 months from the date of that order for the determination of the points. This application will be made in GST PL 7. Again, this application will be made directly to the GST Appellate Tribunal, and it will be dealt by the tribunal as if it is an appeal made against the order of the appellate authority or the regional authority. Here, in case departmental appeal, there is no question of any pre-deposit because it is within the department itself. Therefore, no pre-deposit concept here in this particular situation. Again, after hearing, what can the tribunal do? It may either confirm, modify, or annul the order. As if you see, enhancing the order is missing here. Okay, please observe that enhance the order is missing. Please observe that enhancement of order is absent in section, which was there in the appellate authority case. So it can confirm, modify, or annul the decision or the order appeal against, or it can also refer the case back. Now, this point also is there, which was not there earlier. It can refer the case back to the appellate authority or the adjudicating authority, saying that some evidence has come to me which you have forgotten to take note of. Therefore, I request you to relook at your decision and again pass the decision. In this case, natural justice, 3 adjournments are allowed. Adjournments is whenever the date is fixed and the department or taxpayer wants more time. To either side, 3 adjournments are allowed. Advisory time limit of 1 year is given. Again, this time limit is totally advisory. It is not compulsory. Within the day, from the date of filing the appeal, 1 year time limit is given as an advisory time limit for the purpose of deciding the appeal and passing the order. Then what happens? The order copy is usually sent once the order is passed by the tribunal. It sends the order to the appellate authority, revisional authority, or original adjudicating authority, to the appellant, to the respective jurisdictional commission. All appeals which are filed by the tribunal will be final and binding unless the dispute is taken to the higher appellate forum. Which is the higher appellate forum in this case? Nothing but the High Court. Rectification of errors, again, the same order the tribunal can correct by itself. 113 subsection 3. On the face of the order, if there is any obvious error, mistake, error apparent on the face of the record means any obvious error is there. Either the tribunal itself notices the error or some other person has brought it to his notice. In this particular situation, within 3 months from the date of order, it can change the order. Whenever the date of order is there, within 3 months, the order can be changed by the respective commission. Fine. So that is your provisions with regard to the appellate tribunal. And here the next point is basically your mandatory pre-deposit. We'll just take a short break of 10 minutes and come back, and we will look at the concepts pertaining to mandatory pre-deposit. What is the amount of tax interest you have to deposit for the purpose of preferring an? So see any queries meanwhile based on what we have discussed? Any queries, please feel free to post. I hope everyone are understanding the flow of how the appeals have to be taken case. So I will just see you in the next 10 minutes. Yeah, welcome back everyone. So that was your GST appellate tribunal rules and the timelines what we discussed. Now we will again look at the pre-deposit rules with which comes to filing of appeals both with the appellate authority as well as the GST appellate tribunal. Please remember many questions are asked based on this. So I would request all of you to please concentrate when we are discussing this particular provision as to how the pre-deposit has to be taken into consideration. Technically, whenever a person goes on appeal, the deposit of tax usually is supposed to be given in total because it is a loss to the revenue whenever he prefers an appeal. Because till the appeal is disposed of, the government will not get that respective amount of tax which it was expecting to get. So therefore, the main thing is ideally the entire amount has to be pre-deposited, usually for preventing, to discourage the frivolous appeals. That is simply for, even though the taxpayer knows that he has made a mistake, simply he will file an appeal just to gain some time. Okay, to discourage all those things and to safeguard the interest of revenue, and at the same time to make sure that the taxpayer does not have a huge financial impact. Therefore, the rule 1076 provides, that is with respect to the appellate authority. First, we will discuss the pre-deposit for the appellate authority, then we will look at the tribunal. It says that the no appeal shall be filed with the appellate authority unless the appellant has paid the full amount of tax, interest, and penalty as is admitted by him. That is, certain issues the taxpayer will agree, and for certain issues the taxpayer will not agree, for which he will prefer an appeal. So for whichever he agrees, he will have to pay the entire amount of tax, interest, fine, fee, penalty, whichever he agrees, and whichever he is appeal again, that is known as tax in dispute, against which he has filed an appeal, he has to pay a sum equal to 10% of the remaining amount, subject to a maximum of 25 crores. When I say 25 crores here, CGST is 25 crores and SGST is 25 crores. And for IGST, obviously it is 50 crores. This is the maximum limit which is there. Okay, to that extent, he has to pay the tax, only then the appeal can be preferred. However, there is one particular appeal order which is passed under 129 subsection 3, which speaks about the seizure, detention, and release of conveyances, documents, and goods in transit, which we discussed in the previous chapter. In that particular situation, 25% of the penalty should have been paid by the appellant. Only then the appeal can be filed against to the appellate authority against the order which is passed under 129 subsection 3. Again, the payment of pre-deposit here ensures staying of the recovery proceedings for the balance amount of demand in dispute. So whatever pre-deposit has to be paid, it will make sure that recovery proceedings will not be undertaken for the balance amount of demand. Why? Because he's preferred an appeal. So an example here, I request please try to answer this question. ABC Private Limited received a show cause notice demanding tax of rupees 10 lakhs, penalty of rupees 10 lakhs, and interest of 2 lakhs. Adjudicating authority passes the order confirming the entire demand. ABC admits the tax liability of 5 lakhs and interest of 50,000. It wishes to file an appeal to litigate the balance demand amount. What is the amount of pre-deposit to be made for filing the appeal with the appellate authority? Please try to answer this question. Please try to answer this question. What is the pre-deposit to be given in this particular situation? Because for a lot of time, I've not been asking you any questions. So I hope all of you are watching it. So please try to answer this. Then at least I'll know that all of you are attentive, especially this section, pre-deposit of tax. Multiple questions have been asked in the past. You can definitely expect questions based on this. So here if you see, he has to pay the entire amount what he has agreed, that everything has to be paid. Here 10 lakhs tax, penalty of 10 lakhs, interest of 2 lakhs. So he is admitting the tax liability of 5 lakhs and interest of 50,000. So 5 lakh 50,000, 100% he has to pay. Apart from 5 lakh 50,000, the balance amount ka 10% he has to pay. This is what is to be done. So therefore, full amount of tax interest penalty, which is 5.5 lakhs. So what is the tax in dispute here? 10 lakhs of, again, this 10%, only the tax amount you have to calculate, not the penalty interest here. So therefore, 5 lakh 50,000 he has admitted that he has to pay, apart from the 10% of the tax amount. So 10% of the tax in dispute. What is the tax in dispute? 5 lakhs he has agreed to pay. That means only 5 lakhs of the tax is in dispute. So 5 lakhs, 10%, 50,000. So therefore, 5.5 lakhs full amount of tax and 10% of the tax in dispute, that is 50,000. These are the two amounts which he has to pay. Only then he has to, he can file the appeal. Similarly, next question. ABC Private Limited requires receives a show cause notice demanding IGST of rupees 600 crores, penalty of 100 crores and interest of 10 crores. Adjudicating authority passed the order confirming the entire demand. While ABC Private Limited admits the tax liability, penalty and interest of 50 crores, 10 crores, 1 crore respectively, it wishes to file an appeal to litigate the balance demand. What is the amount of pre-deposit? Here you should remember that in case of IGST cases, this is very much IGST involved here, the maximum amount of amount which is supposed to be paid, that is 10% of the tax in dispute, will be 50 crores. That you have to remember that particular point. So two things has to be paid here. First of all, what has he agreed? He admits the tax liability, penalty and interest of 50, 10 and 1 crore respectively. That means 61 crores he has agreed. 61 crores he has agreed. So what he has agreed, that anyways he has to pay. Second, 10% of the tax in dispute. Second one is 10% of the tax in dispute. What is the tax in dispute here? 50 crores. So 600 crores is that IGST. 50 crores he has agreed. So 550 is in dispute. 550 into 10% is 55 crores. But there is an upper limit of 50 crores. So 50 crores will have to be paid. So 50 plus 61, 111 crores has to be paid. Only then the appeal can be filed by him. I hope you are able to understand how the pre-deposit is calculated. Moving forward. Yeah. Now we come to the calculation of pre-deposit when it comes to appeal to be filed before the tribunal. So therefore, no appeal can be filed before the tribunal unless full amount of tax, interest, fine, fee, penalty is which is paid, whichever is admitted by him, the entire amount he pays, and 20% of the remaining amount of tax in dispute, in addition to the amount deposited before the appellate authority. So that means in case of appeal before the tribunal, he has to pay the full amount of tax, whichever he has, tax, interest and penalty, whichever he has admitted, and with respect to the remaining amount of tax in dispute, 20% he has to pay. This 20% apart from the 10% what he has already paid. Apart from the 10% what he has already paid before the appellate authority, he has to again pay 20% of the amount in dispute, subject to a maximum of 50 crores. And in case of IGST, the limit is 100 crores. So this is the upper cap which is there with respect to the appeal to be filed before the appellate tribunal. Again, when the pre-deposit has been made, the recovery proceedings for the balance amount of demand in dispute shall be deemed to be stayed till the disposal of the appeal. So therefore, what is the pre-deposit? This table summarizes the amount of pre-deposit which is supposed to be calculated with regard to the CGST here, admitted CGST liability in full plus 10% of the CGST dispute, subject to a maximum of 25 crore rupees has to be paid. And in case of IGST, it is IGST liability admitted plus 10% subject to a maximum of 50 crores. When it comes to appellate tribunal, admitted CGST liability in full plus 20% of the CGST in dispute, in addition to whatever amount you have disposed before the appellate authority. Maximum limit, however, is 50 crores here. When it is IGST, admitted IGST liability plus 20% of IGST in dispute, in addition to whatever you have deposited before the appellate authority, subject to a maximum of 100 crores rupees. This is the pre-deposit which is mentioned. Fine. So therefore, CGST, when I say the amount, equal amount of SGST also has to be deposited. Right? So therefore, maximum amount will anyways be the same. Don't think that the maximum amount is less in case of CGST. It is not that understanding. Because when it comes to CGST applicability, similarly SGST also will be applicable. So the respective amount under CGST, the respective amount under SGST, both put together has to be paid. Now, please try to work out this problem. ABC Private Limited receives an adjudication order demanding CGST and SGST of 200 crores each. ABC Private Limited filed an appeal to the Appellate Authority contesting the entire demand. The amount of pre-deposit is how much in this particular situation? This we have already given 10% of 200 crores here. So 20 crores is the appeal, less than 25 crores, so that amount has to be paid. So total of 40 crores has been paid by the company. The appellate authority heard the appeal and decided in favor of the department, confirming the entire demand. Company filed an appeal to the appellate tribunal. What is the amount of the pre-deposit to be made by the company? Try to answer this question. Company filed an appeal with the appellate tribunal. What is the amount of pre-deposit to be made by the company? Please try to answer this question. Very straightforward, simple question. So in this particular situation, the appeal which goes to the appellate tribunal, a total of 200 crores. So 20% pre-deposit is required. So that means the entire demand, if he is contesting 20% of the total tax in dispute, that is 40 crores under CGST and 40 crores under SGST, total of 80 crores has to be deposited as a pre-deposit. But however, there is a, it is the maximum limit is 50 crores per CGST. So therefore 80 crores has to be generated. So therefore, ABC, next question, ABC Private Limited wishes to file an appeal with the appellate tribunal against an order of the AA demanding IGST of 200 crores. Company admits the liability of 100 crores but wishes to litigate the balance amount and thus files an appeal with the tribunal. Compute the amount of pre-deposit to be made by ABC Private Limited for filing the appeal to the appellate tribunal. Please try to answer this question. Please try to answer this question. What is the pre-deposit term which is mentioned and what is the amount which is required to be paid? So here if you see 1200 crores is the IGST limit which is applicable. Company admits the liability of 100 crores. So what is the amount to be filed? Total tax admitted, that is rupees 100 crores and 20% of the tax in dispute. Tax in dispute comes to 1100 crores. So 1100 crores into 20%, which is 220 crores, but limit of rupees 100 crores is applicable. Therefore, total of rupees 200 crores pre-deposit needs to be paid for filing the appeal with the GST appellate tribunal. Okay, I hope this is clear. So therefore, computation, if you see here, calculation of pre-deposit, full amount of tax, interest and penalty as is admitted by the company, that is 100 crores, then 20% of the tax in dispute, but there is an upper cap which is there of 100 crores. Total pre-deposit is 200 crores, which is to be done. Now, in an order dated 20th August issued to GH Private Limited, the Joint Commissioner of CGST has confirmed IGST demand of 280 crores. The company is disputing the entire demand of IGST and wants to know the amount of pre-deposit it has to make under the IGST Act for filing an appeal before the Appellate Authority against the order of the Joint Commissioner. Assuming that the Appellate Authority also confirms the Joint Commissioner and the company wants to file an appeal before the Appellate Tribunal, determine the amount of pre-deposit to be made. Very simple question, try to answer. Under IGST Act, for Appellate Authority appeal, what is the pre-deposit? For the tribunal, what is the pre-deposit? Finally, I can see some answers. Very good. This question also try to answer, Mansha. And what about the others? I want you also to answer. Fairly straightforward questions. Definitely, you can expect any question in the examination for pre-deposit of tax. More answers, anyone? So here 280 crores is the IGST demand. It is disputing the entire demand of IGST. Pre-deposit to be made. What is the pre-deposit provisions here? 10% of the tax in dispute. Therefore, 28 crores. But is there any cap? Is there any cap for IGST demand? There is a cap of 50 crores. Fine. Let us look the provision just in case you have forgotten. Here, if you see, maximum of 50 crores. %10% of the remaining amount or subject to a maximum of 25 crores for CGST, 50 crores in IGST. So therefore, in this particular situation, if you see 28 crores, so therefore this has to be paid. 10% will be 28 crores. Now, what he has to pay in this particular situation? 20% of tax in dispute. 20% of tax in dispute, which is 56 crores. Right? Again, limit is IGST is 100 crores here. So therefore, in this particular situation, 56 crores will be applicable. Fine. Here, the limit is 50 crores for IGST. Here, the limit is 100 crores for IGST. Fine. The next question. XY company received an adjudication order passed by Assistant Commissioner of Central Tax under 1st November under Section 33 at delayed forms. CGST and SGST due 6 lakhs. Interest and at the rate of 18% per annum for the number of delayed days is calculated. Penalty 60,000. The tax payer filed an appeal before the Appellate Authority on 26th November. Determine the amount of pre-deposit to be made by the company if it disagrees with the entire tax demand. Whether your answer will be different, if taxpayer appeals only against part of the demanded amount, say 4 lakhs, and admits the balance tax liability of 20,000 and proportionate penalty arising from the said order. Please try to answer this. Another question relating to pre-deposit of tax. Answer for this one? So here if you see, CGST and SGST do 6 lakhs. So in case he files before the appellate authority, what is the pre-deposit if he disagrees with the entire thing? He has to make a deposit of 10% of the tax in dispute. 10% of the tax in dispute. 10% of the tax in dispute. So what is the tax in dispute? The tax in dispute is only 6 lakh rupees. Okay, 10% of tax in dispute. Therefore, under CGST he has to pay rupees 30,000 and SGST has to pay rupees 30,000. Now, this is the answer for the first question. Second one, what will be your answer if he appeals only against part of the demanded amount, say 4 lakhs, admits the balance tax liability of 2 lakhs and proportionate penalty. So balance tax liability, if he is admitting, first this entire thing he has to pay. So he has to pay the 2 lakh rupees, he has to pay the proportionate penalty, also interest under 18% per annum for the admitted tax. So therefore, here he has to pay. What all he has to pay? He has to pay 2 lakhs. Okay, 2 lakhs plus proportionate penalty will be 20,000 because 10% if you see for 6 lakhs, for this one it will be 20,000 plus interest on admitted tax. Interest on admitted tax. So admitted tax interest is how much? Is basically that is not required given here, so we did not mention the amount. So 2,20,000 plus interest. This has to be paid apart from this 10% of rupees 4 lakhs. So 20,000 CGST, 20,000 CGST, and 20,000 SGST. So this is the solution for this. Accordingly, you have to calculate based on this. So definitely you can expect a question from this pre-deposit of tax. I hope all of you have got clarity. If any doubts, please feel free to ask. Now it talks about this question talks about interest with respect to refund of pre-deposit. Now here what happens is whenever the person, the taxpayer makes the pre-deposit of tax, please bear in mind the pre-deposit of tax is not an absolute payment which is taken by the taxpayer for the purpose of deciding the appeal. If the appellate authority or the appellate tribunal decides the case in favor of the taxpayer, the pre-deposit money what he has given, pre-deposit of tax what he has made, the tax in dispute pre-deposit which has already been made, shall be refunded to the taxpayer along with interest. And interest has to be calculated right from the date of payment of the amount and not from the date of order of the appellate authority or the tribunal. So this is the taxpayer friendly provision which has been introduced, which says that in case of payment of pre-deposit, because please remember, pre-deposit of tax is just to safeguard the interest of revenue and to prevent frivolous appeals and appeals just for the sake of it. This is the main reason for introducing the pre-deposit of tax. But if the appeal is disposed in favor of the taxpayer, obviously the pre-deposit of tax what he has made, he could have deployed it elsewhere. Unnecessarily that amount was stuck with the GST department for so many years. Therefore, it is totally imperative, it is totally justified that the department refunds the pre-deposit and calculates the interest right from the payment of the pre-deposit till the date of actual payment of the amount. This interest under 56 will be applicable. So interest provisions are covered in section 50 to 56, interest rate, whatever is given under 56 will be applicable for this, and along with the interest, the respective pre-deposit shall be refunded. Entire pre-deposit shall be refunded. Now we look at an important point with regard to production of additional evidence before the appellate authority or the appellate tribunal. So the what rule 112 of the CGST rule says that the appellant shall not be allowed to produce before the appellate authority or the tribunal any evidence, whether oral or documentary, other than the evidence produced by him during the course of proceedings before the adjudicating authority, or as the case may be, the appellate authority. That means, what does it say? Now, whenever you are filing an appeal with the appellate authority or you are filing an appeal with the appellate tribunal, new evidence, additional evidence, either oral or documentary, the rule says shall not be provided in the course of the proceedings. Okay, in the course of the proceedings. Whatever evidence which has been produced by him to the adjudicating authority, only this evidence has to be produced. Additional evidence cannot be produced. This is what the rule is there. So why there is a concept of additional evidence? Because basic evidence is anyways given to the adjudicating authority when he is passing the order. So he has passed the order based on the respective evidence what we have provided to him and the basis of the documents what we have provided to him. Now, when you are going to the appellate authority appeal or when you are going to the appellate tribunal appeal, it is very important for us to ensure that new evidence as such is not provided, because you have not provided the new evidence, or you have not provided the additional evidence when the adjudicating authority or the appellate authority has decided your case. You are providing additional evidence only when the respective appellate authority or the tribunal is hearing your case. So definitely the additional evidence was not seen by the adjudicating authority. So therefore it is not fair to him. This is precisely why this rule is there, that additional evidence apart from what has been given to the adjudicating authority. In case you are going to the appellate authority, whatever is given to the appellate. So here what does this mean? In case appeal filed with appellate authority, additional evidence only produced before the adjudicating authority shall be produced. Okay, in case appeal filed with GST appellate tribunal, evidence only produced before the appellate authority shall be produced. So therefore the rule says that new additional evidence shall not be produced in these particular cases. New additional evidence are not produced in these particular cases. So, but however, there are some exceptions, circumstances where the production of evidence can be allowed. Now, what are those exceptional circumstances? Let us see. First one, where the adjudicating authority, or as the case may be, the appellate authority, has refused to admit evidence which ought to have been admitted. That means there is one strong evidence which is supporting the taxpayer in his conclusions that he need not pay the tax liability. And when he offered to admit that evidence before the adjudicating authority or the appellate authority, the respective authorities have refused to admit that evidence which ought to have been admitted. So when it is ought to have been admitted, this is something what the appellate authority or the appellate tribunal will decide. So therefore, in this particular situation, first point is refusal to admit the evidence. So if the evidence is not admitted, which ideally should have been admitted, then in that particular situation, it can be produced now also. Second situation, where the appellant was prevented by sufficient cause from producing the evidence which he was called upon by the adjudicating authority, or as the case may be the appellate authority. He was prevented by sufficient cause. That means the evidence was in control of some other person. He did not get the evidence in his hand when he was asked to produce. For example, the appellate authority or the adjudicating authority say that, okay, you have produced this particular evidence. Now you are telling that you have evidence. Please come and show it to us. Due to some reason, maybe the COVID, the bills were there in the office, due to lockdown, he could not get it. So he did not produce before that stage. But now COVID has gone and appellate is there, appeal is there before the appellate tribunal. Now we can very much produce the evidence. That is the second situation. So first one, refusal to admit the evidence. Second one, prevented by sufficient cause from producing the evidence. Third one, where the appellant was prevented by sufficient cause from producing before the adjudicating authority any evidence which is relevant to any ground of appeal. That means what? First thing is, if any ground of appeal is there, with respect to the ground of appeal, with respect to the issue which has been raised, now for example, claim of input tax credit is been litigated. Now the evidence which substantiates the claim of input tax credit is the invoice which is issued by the supplier. Now this invoice I did not produce. Due to sufficient cause, the taxpayer was prevented from producing the respective invoice with relevant to any ground of appeal. Then also it can get the new evidence, no problem. Then, where the adjudicating authority, or as the case may be appellate authority, has made the order appealed against without giving opportunity to adduce evidence relevant to any ground of appeal, where the appellate authority or the tribunal is satisfied that the order has been passed without giving the opportunity to the appellant to show the respective evidence to the ground of appeal. Now again, all these points what have been mentioned here, which arouse the new evidence in the course of the appeal proceedings, are very subjective. It is a matter of the decision to be taken by the appellate forum, and it varies from case to case. Here the case, sometimes it may be felt that opportunity of being heard is not given. So therefore, if he feels the same, in that particular case, he has to admit the evidence. Also, additional evidence will not be recorded will not be admitted. Okay, no additional evidence will be admitted unless the appellate authority or the tribunal records in writing the reasons for its admission. So reasons for the admission have to be recorded in writing. Okay, that is another very, very important point. The reasons for the admission have to be recorded in writing. Only then it can be admitted. Okay, further provisions. The appellate authority or the tribunal shall not take additional evidence unless the adjudicating authority or the officer authorized has been allowed a reasonable opportunity to examine the evidence or document or cross-examine any witness produced by the appellant. Now, what does this mean? This is very similar to the memorandum of cross objections concept what we discussed. Now, whenever you are taking additional evidence, that means that respective evidence was not seen by the adjudicating authority. It was not seen by the appellate authority in that lower courses of appeals. So therefore, in that particular situation, the adjudicating officer or any other officer appointed on his behalf, we should be given an opportunity of examining the evidence or document. So if there is any evidence or document which you have brought forth and which has not been provided earlier, you should give an opportunity to the adjudicating authority or any other authorized officer to examine the document or evidence. And in case of a witness, you should also give him the facility to cross-examine the witness which is produced. So cross-examining of the witness as well as examination of the evidence or document has to be given. Also, he should also give the adjudicating officer a facility to provide an evidence or witness in rebuttal. Rebuttal means in response. So when additional evidence is being given by the appellate, in counter to that, if the respective adjudicating authority has some evidence in counter to the evidence given by the aggrieved taxpayer, he should definitely be given an opportunity for producing that particular evidence also. He should definitely be given an opportunity. Also, here, this rule is anyways there, but apart from this, the appellate authority or the tribunal have the power to direct the production of any document, examination of witness to enable to dispose of the appeal. So therefore, just because this provision is there, the power of the appellate authority or the appellate tribunal to call for information or documents as examining and witness for the purpose of disposal of appeal. This power will not be affected in any way. This power will not be affected in any way. Now we come to section 116, appointment of authorized representative. Now, when I say authorized representative, it means a person who is willing and who is authorized by the taxpayer to represent him in front of the GST department. Because taxpayers as such, they are there to conduct the business, they are there to operate their business. They are not bothered about what is the what is the law, what is the rule. All that they have to be guided by an expert in that respective field. It can be a GST practitioner or a chartered accountant or a cost. So therefore, if anything goes wrong, the respective taxpayer may not be in a position to explain his side of the story because of the lack of knowledge of the GST provisions, which is precisely why he takes help of an authorized representative. So the provisions relating to authorized representative is covered in section 116. So therefore, whoever, any person who is entitled or required to appear before the GST officer or the appellate authority or the tribunal in connection with the proceedings, he may appear through authorized representative, except when is required under the act to appear personally on examination or oath or affirmation. So therefore, if the GST department gives the summons and for examining that person under oath, in that particular situation, the authorized representative is not allowed. In those cases, we have to make sure that that respective taxpayer attends himself. Therefore, in that particular situation, he has to attend himself. Fine. So therefore, in this particular situation, he may either appear through authorized representative, except in cases where he has to appear personally for examination of. Who can be the authorized representative? Again, there is no specific qualification here as such what the department is telling. It can be even a relative. Basically, the person who has knowledge about the company's business and what has happened, it can be that also. It can be a relative, it can be a regular employee, it can be an advocate, chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary, or GST practitioner. Okay. Also, any indirect tax officers who have served at least for 2 years, okay, they also can appear as authorized representative after 1 year from date of their retirement or resignation. So after they resign as an indirect tax officer, they have to wait for 1 year. Or after their retirement, they have to wait for 1 year. After that 1 year, and who have at least 2 years of experience, they also can be appointed as an authorized representative by the aggrieved tax. Fine. And what are the disqualifications for the authorized representative? Please bear in mind, though any qualification per se has not been attached to the authorized representative, he says that certain disqualifications are there. If those are present, he cannot be the authorized representative. What is the first one? He has been dismissed or removed from the government service. That is, if any indirect tax officer is there, due to some issue, he has been removed from the government service or he has been dismissed from the government service. Such a person cannot be the authorized person. Obviously, because he himself has had a very bad experience, due to which he cannot be assured to interpret the laws in the correct manner. Therefore, he is totally disqualified from representing the tax. Second one, who is convicted of any offense connected with any proceeding under the GST laws or under any other law, or under any of the acts passed by the state legislature dealing with the imposition of taxes or sale of goods or supply of goods or services. What does this mean? That means any person who is convicted of an offense. Okay, conviction is important. And this offense is connected to basically the indirect tax laws. It can be the GST law or any earlier laws or the VAT or the service tax laws dealing with imposition of tax on sale of goods or supply. That nothing but the service tax, excise, and VAT laws also. If he has been convicted of any offense connected to the previous laws also, and also he has been convicted with respect to the proceedings under the GST law. So this person also is disqualified. Third one, a person who is guilty of misconduct by the prescribed authority. That is, here the CA Institute finds a fellow CA to be guilty of misconduct. The bar council finds a fellow advocate to be guilty of misconduct. So if any such authority has found such guilt or misconduct, he can also be not allowed to represent the respective taxpayer. Who has been adjudged as insolvent shall be qualified to represent any other person. In this particular situation, he as who is insolvent, that is, he does not have money, he is bankrupt. In that particular situation, all these categories of persons will not be qualified to represent any person for all time for persons represented in ABC, and in case of insolvent person for the period during which the insolvency continues in case of a person referred to the valid clause number D. So therefore, A, B, C persons, whoever are there in that particular situation, no person who has been adjudged as an insolvent shall be represented to qualified for the represent. Same way, any person who is disqualified under the provisions of the SGST or the CGST Act shall be deemed to be disqualified under the respective other state or central act also. Then here in case small section, the financial and administrative powers have to be exercised by the president of the appellate tribunal. So whichever is the president of the tribunal, he will exercise all the respective prescribed financial and administrative powers. Now we come to the appeal to the High Court. Now, the most important point which we have to remember here is with regard to question of fact. When I say question of fact, that means the final decision maker is the appellate tribunal. The High Court can be involved only in cases pertaining to where it involves a substantial question of law. When I say substantial question of law, it means interpretation of the provisions, what each provision intends to say, and what has to be done as per that respective provision. This is what is covered in this substantial question of law. So, which are the orders which can be appealable to the High Court? First, from any person, whether department or other person, who is aggrieved by any order passed by the state benches of the tribunal. So, state benches of the tribunal is there. They passed one order. There, either the taxpayer or the department is aggrieved by such order. They are not in support with the order what he has given. They may file an appeal to the High Court. Again, here the High Court will see they can file any appeal. They can file any appeal. But before deciding on the appeal, the High Court will be satisfied. Before it admits such appeal, the High Court should be satisfied that it involves a substantial question of law. Only if the High Court is satisfied that it involves a substantial question of law, only then it can admit only such appeal. Again, after if it involves a question of fact, no question of the appeal being admitted also. You will say nothing doing, I don't want to hear the appeal. I will first look at the case. I will see whether it is a substantial question of law. If I am satisfied it is a substantial question of law, only then I will admit the appeal. So what is substantial question? A question which is answered by relevant legal principles to interpretation of law. Or it is totally different from question of fact that must be answered by evaluating the relevant facts or evidences. Example, as I told you, if you say input tax credit was not allowed to the taxpayer because he did not have the respective tax invoices issued by the supplier in possession. It is a question of fact. Because it is very clear, if the invoices are there, you would have got the input tax credit. If the invoice is not there, that means he has been denied the input tax credit. Question of fact. Again, time of supply. When I should do the time of supply, when the receipt of the advance or the when the supply of goods or services or the receipt of the advance, whichever is earlier. So the dates are very much there in front of you. So time of supply you can gather. Again, it is a question of fact. Now, what is a question of law? Whether the input tax credit is eligible or not. How will I study this? I will have to look at 17 subsection. Why? Analyze the provisions and give my opinion whether it is an eligible credit or ineligible. So therefore, in that particular situation, legal principles have to be applied to understand and interpret the law. Whenever the legal principles are to be applied for an interpretation of the law, then it comes to a question of law. Where fact means whatever evidence are there, whatever is the situation, facts and circumstances of the case, based on that, I take the decision. That is a question of fact. So therefore, question of fact totally depends on particular circumstances or factual situations, whereas question of law depends on legal principles. It can be applied in many situations. So therefore, recent case law in 2020 to be substantial. So again, not even a substantial question of law, it has to be a substantial question of law. That means to be substantial, the law should be debatable, not settled by the law of the land. No precedent must have a material bearing on the case or the rights of the party before it answered either. So it should not have any precedent also. That means if there's any case law there which is giving you an answer, a Supreme Court case law is there which is giving an answer for the question of your law, then there is no requirement of admitting the appeal. Very simple. It has to be debatable or previously settled, or it should have a precedent as such. Right? Again, applicability of exemption notification to the taxpayer can be question of law, because one notification exemption is there. In that notification exemption, whether this taxpayer is exempt or not is what we have to decide. So if you are deciding whether the taxpayer is exempt, okay, that means you are interpreting the notification accordingly. But the department is interpreting the notice in a different manner. So this basically involves legal principles. Since it involves legal principles, you have to go and apply to the High Court because it is a substantial question of law. However, quantum of exemption. So whether it is exempt or not, it is a question of law. But how much is the amount exempt? Conditional exemption. To some extent, how much is the amount of exemption available? That is a question of fact. Again, time limit for appeal is given here also. Appeal has to be filed within 180 days from the date on which the order appealed against is received by the aggrieved person. However, continuation of delay is very much possible. There is no timeline as such. 180 days is given from the date on which form of appeal shall be GST APL 08. Once the decision of the High Court will be made, once it is satisfied that a substantial question of law is involved, it shall formulate the question and the appeal shall be heard only on the question so formulated. Again, the High Court will not look into everything. High Court will look into only what the question is there. It will not touch the other aspects also. Okay. But similarly, any other substantial of law also High Court can hear the question if it is satisfied. If the High Court is satisfied, apart from one question of law, it involves any other question of law, then it can hear the others also. Okay. Then it can hear the others also. Fine. I hope this is clear. So therefore, what shall the High Court do? It shall decide the questions of law which is formulated, deliver and the judgments thereon containing the grounds on which it is founded, and award the cost as it may deem fit. Again, the High Court may determine any issue which has not been determined by the tribunal, that is the state benches, or has been wrongly determined by the state benches by reason of decision on such question of law. So any issue which has been decided by the tribunal, which the High Court feel is incorrect, which the High Court feels it is incorrect, these particular points can be again here in this particular situation, it can determine the issue on the basis of such question of law. So this appeal will be heard by a bench of not less than 2 judges. The points on which they differ, if any, shall be heard upon that point only by 1 or more judges of the High Court. Final judgment again will be made. Again, here also there may be a difference of opinion, because in tribunal only there is difference of opinion. In High Court there will be 100% difference of opinion. So if there is a difference of opinion, what will happen? We have to first 2 judges will be sitting in the High Court. On whatever points they may differ in that particular situation, it will be if they disagree, it will go to another judge of the High Court. Final judgment, they will see of the judges of all the opinions what the judges have, and accordingly take the majority of whatever the judges feel. Again, deposit of all tax dues has to be made, otherwise inherent powers have to be invoked for obtaining a stay pending the disposal of the appeal. So therefore, important point here is, if you are going to the High Court, you have to make all the payments of tax dues, but if that question of law is very critical, due to which the tax amounts are also huge, not being able to be paid. In that particular situation, there is also an option of filing a stay application before the High Court, asking to keep the collection of taxes on hold pending the disposal of the appeal. So that also can be done if it is required. Now we come to the last leg of appeal, which is appeal to the Supreme Court. Again, if any judgment or order which is passed by the High Court in any particular case, you can also go to the Supreme Court. Again, the Supreme Court laws appeal for judgment passed by the High Court in any case, which on its own motion, that means on its own also the High Court can go to the Supreme Court, or an application made by or on behalf of the party aggrieved. Either the taxpayer or the department can make an application saying that even the High Court order, I am not happy. The High Court, I am not in agreement with the order of the High Court. Again, in this particular situation, the High Court has to certify that it is a fit one for appeal to the Supreme Court. In one case, where the principal bench of the tribunal is almost given the same powers as the High Court when it comes to taking of the decisions. So the direct appeal, whichever is to be filed to the Supreme Court, whichever the order is passed by the principal bench of the tribunal, that is the main bench where the president is there, which sits in New Delhi. This particular, whatever orders are passed by this respective principal bench, on this also the orders what are passed against that, instead of going to the High Court, the direct appeal can be made to the Supreme Court also. Again, here also Code of Civil Procedure, which relates to appeals to the Supreme Court, will apply. Deposit of all tax dues will be required unless stay is obtained from the Supreme Court pending the disposal of the appeal. So therefore, unconditionally, all the tax dues you have to pay. If your tax dues are very high or you don't want to pay the tax dues, you have to parallelly apply for a stay of tax demand with the Supreme Court. If that stay is obtained, then you're not required to pay the tax. However, if it is obtained, then in this, if stay order is obtained, you don't need to pay the tax. If it's not obtained, all the tax dues have to be paid for the appeal to be made to the Supreme Court. Again, here the Supreme Court can either confirm the judgment of the High Court, or if it feels it can reverse the judgment of the High Court or the tribunal, as the case may be, may also award the cost the aggrieved party, saying that the compensation has to be given to him because of all the problems what he has faced due to the litigation. It can also remand the matter for fresh consideration. It can send back the matter to the adjudicating and the appellate authority for fresh consideration. Sums due to be paid notwithstanding appeal, etc. So here what happens with respect to the sums due to the government as a result of an order passed by the principal bench, etc., notwithstanding the appeal has been preferred, shall be payable in accordance with the order so passed. So whichever the bench of the tribunal decides that the amount have to be paid the tax, whether you file an appeal with the High Court or whether you file an appeal with the Supreme Court, that doesn't matter. You have to make the payment of the respective tax, interest and penalty. Then one question here, Mr. A has filed an appeal before the tribunal against an order of the appellate authority where the issue involves place of supply. The order of appellate tribunal is also in favor of the department. Now wants to file against the decision as he feels the stand taken by is correct. You are required to advise him suitably with regard to filing of appeal before the appellate forum higher than the appellate tribunal. Can I answer this question? Yeah. Appellate tribunal, yes, filed an appeal against the order of the appellate authority where the issue involved place of supply. Wherever the issue involves place of supply, we have read in the discussion that only one particular bench can hear the case. What is that bench? You have to remember. Okay, he also decided in favor of the department wants to file against the decision as he feels the stand taken by is correct. Filing, so to whom he has to now file the case? This is what is answer. Please try to answer this. Aggrieved party cannot challenge the SC decision. SC decision is final. Whatever the Supreme Court decides is final and binding. That is the final decision what is taken based on the orders which is given. So this question, please try to answer. State benches, please try, please again read very carefully. Please again read very carefully. The trick question, trick point here is place of supply. So when we saw the provisions with regard to the benches, let me take you back. Of course, when you revise this, you will be able to understand. That's not an issue. Here, in case where any of the issues involved relates to place of supply shall be heard only by the principal bench. So therefore, the question is very clear that it involves the it involves the issue relating to place of supply. So when the issue relates to place of supply, that means it shall be heard only by the principal bench. Okay. Now, once it is heard by the principal bench, if he is not happy with the decision, to whom he will he appeal? Can you answer this question? He will have to file an appeal before the High Court. Correct. Kirti, you are right. So he has to file the appeal before the High Court because, sorry, the Supreme Court. Supreme Court. Kirti, you are not right. Sorry. Here, place of supply, whenever principal bench is arriving at a decision, when you look at the provisions relating to Supreme Court, let us go back here. A direct appeal also shall lie from orders passed by the principal bench of the tribunal. That means principal bench almost has same powers as the High Court. So place of supply provision is being, the decision is being made by the principal bench. Any order passed by the principal bench, if the taxpayer is not happy, he will prefer an appeal with directly the Supreme Court. Directly the Supreme Court. I hope it is clear. That is the trick question here. You can expect a similar question in the examination. Now, apart from all these appellate provisions, also it is clearly given in certain cases the appeals not to be filed. That means here what happens? Now, some very basic matters will be there. Tax amount is very less. More than the tax amount, you will spend in hiring the services of an authorized representative or the respective appeal filing fees. That itself, very nominal issues will be there. So therefore, in those particular provisions will be there where the filing of appeals by the CGST officers in non-complex officers. So providing for non-filing, section also prevents that such steps should not stop the tax department to file the appeal in other similar cases. That means the non-filing is mainly because of the small amounts. But if the same issue, there are bigger amounts, it does not mean the appeal should not be filed. So therefore, in this particular, the board may, on recommendations of the council, may issue the orders or directions fixing the monetary limits for regulating filing of appeal or application by the CGST officer. Okay, so these monetary limits will be fixed from time to time. Basically, when the limits are very less, like say 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, whatever what may be, in that particular situation, here the appeal need not be filed. Again, non-filing of appeal or application on account of monetary limits shall not preclude just because of the monetary amounts being small. He does not file any appeal. It doesn't mean for the same issue, he should not file the appeal where the amounts are high. Where the amounts are definitely high, he will definitely have the power to file the appeal. There is no doubt about that. No person who is a party in application or appeal can contend that CGST officer has acquiesced in the decision on the disputed issue by not filing an appeal or application on account of monetary limits. Now, whenever this CGST officer, on account of monetary limits, one issue is there, the tax impact is only some 5,000 or 10,000, the department does not file an appeal. Now, for the same issue, in any other case, the department goes ahead and files the appeal. Once the department goes ahead and files the appeal, the taxpayer cannot say that in the other issue, where monetary limit was less, on the same issue, he has not filed an appeal. So this also is invalid. He cannot say that because monetary limits are different, issues are different. On monetary limits being less, the appeals will not be entertained. But the issues related, always the appeal will be entertained. So also the appellate tribunal or court hearing such appeal or application shall having regard to the circumstances for non-filing of appeal or application on account of non-monetary case. So therefore, in this particular situation, wherever the appellate court or the tribunal is hearing the revenue application, he will also look at the circumstances. Why in the same issue, because the monetary limit was less, the appeal was not fulfilled. He will consider that when he is disposing this particular case. Also 121, the last section, non-appealable decisions and order. So whatever happens on these orders, appeals cannot be passed. First one, order of the commissioner or other authority empowered to direct transfer of proceedings from one officer to the other officer. Now, in the commissioner says that this particular office is dealing your case, officer is dealing your case. I am not happy with the way he is dealing the case. So therefore, I want to transfer your proceedings to some other officer, and for that he executes an order. That is not at all in your control. You have nothing to do with it. So therefore, you cannot appeal against that order. Whoever the commissioner says, he will only deal with that case. Then, order pertaining to seizure or retention of books of accounts, register and other documents. That means what? Once the seizure is occurring, under the offences and penalties, you see multiple cases where seizure is written. Order for that, you can release. They have separate provisions for compounding. They have separate provisions for redemption fine, etc. All that is there. You cannot file an appeal against that order because the seizure retention happens based on a solid suspicion, on a reason to believe. Against that, appeal cannot be filed. Order sanctioning prosecution under the Act. If an order is sanctioning to prosecute, against that particular order, you cannot pass the order. However, you can pass the order against that particular assessment, but not against the prosecution. Once you prefer an appeal against the assessment, there you are proven right, then anyways this prosecution will not be applicable. Order passed under Section 80, payment of tax in installments. Wherever the government says, based on as per the financial situation, you take a stand of paying, allowing him to pay the tax in installments. You cannot file an appeal against that. So these are the orders against which the appeals cannot be filed. So with this, we come to the end of the chapter, the appeals and revision. I hope all of you have understood the basic concepts. I would request all of you to please revise through my notes. I would request all of you to kindly go through it immediately because a lot of intricate provisions are involved here. So it should not be in a position that you are unable to track as to what is happening. So we are left with around 15 minutes, but I don't see the time there for starting another topic because the flow will be disrupted. So meanwhile, if you have any questions or ask, I'll be available for the next 5 to 10 minutes or till 9 o'clock. Please, any questions, please feel free to post it in the query link. And also, let us see for the further classes, what are the sessions to be taken. Just a moment. So therefore, we have covered with appeals and revisions. Now the next, so 3 classes of our 3 sessions of ours are completed. The 2 sections, we will cover the topic pertaining to advanced rulings in the next session. What is advanced ruling as such? Advanced ruling basically refers to if you have any query on any particular issue or provision, you can apply to the respective authority. The authority will give the respective decision with regard to the same. This in short is your authority for advanced ruling. For that authority for advanced ruling also you have an appellate authority and you have a tribunal as well. For that we will discuss in our next session. And also liability to pay the tax in certain cases where the person triggers the liability to pay the tax, that we will discuss on 23rd of December, that is a Saturday. And post that, the last class on 24th talks about the miscellaneous provisions and the job work provisions which are there, with which we shall end our sessions which are allotted to me. Meanwhile, if you have any queries, please feel free to ask questions. And yes, Mansha, you have to reserve it. I am uploading the respective document pertaining to appeals and revisions right away in your query link so that you can straight away access the respective PDF. I hope you are able to access the other offenses, penalties, and ethical aspects that I have uploaded on that same day. I hope you are able to access that also. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. Just give me a moment. I'm just uploading it right away so that later I won't miss it out. Okay, so I'll be uploading that, and later please let me know if you still have any queries so that we can take it up and accordingly resolve the same. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night. Please revise all the topics properly so that you don't have any gaps in your understanding. I'll be available offline. I'll keep responding in case you have any queries.